Hey BookTube, it's Sarah and welcome back to my channel, The Book Bag. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the books that I'm most excited about that are going to be released next year in 2022. There's a lot of them, there's a lot of really cool releases, there's some great sequels and stuff, and I am so pumped for all these different books to come out. So without further ado, let's get into it. The books that I'm talking about today are just going to be releases that are coming out in the first half of the year, partly because those are the ones that have mostly been announced, and partly because there's like a lot of books that I want to read, and if we were to talk about all of them, we would be here forever. So we'll start with the first half of the year, and then maybe later on in the year I'll post like anticipated reads for the second half of 2022. But for now, we're just going to start with January through June. Okay, so the first book I have is called The Storyteller by Kathryn Williams. So this one comes out January 11th, and it is a YA kind of historical fiction novel. So it follows this girl who is going through her great aunt's diaries and reading them and is like, it's my great aunt Anastasia Romanov, like the lost daughter of the Tsar of Russia. And so it's like historical fiction and like mystery, and there's also a romance. She enlists the help of a guy from the local, I think, university to help her uncover the truth about her great aunt and like determine the legitimacy of the various historical documents that she has. So I am like a little bit obsessed with Anastasia and the idea that like she might have survived. I love reading books about that. I think it's so interesting, even though like she most likely did not survive. I just think it's I don't know, something about it. Just like the Titanic. I love books about that. So I'm really pumped about this one. The next book I have is Weather Girl by Rachael Lynn Solomon. This one also comes out January 11th, and I actually got to read an advanced copy of this, and it is so good. So this is another adult romance from Rachael Lynn Solomon, and it follows a TV meteorologist and a sports reporter whose bosses are like used to be married and are now divorced and are making their lives awful. So they've kind of got a Parent Trap, or like Set It Up if you've seen that movie on Netflix, kind of plan to get their bosses back together to make the workplace much more like welcoming and inviting and less tense for everyone. Of course, as they're setting their bosses up, they start to fall for each other as well, and it's really sweet. Rachael Lynn Solomon always has beautiful Jewish representation in her books. It's always very like casual and there's Jewish traditions like scattered throughout the book, and it's just really lovely because I've not read many books with Jewish characters, so it's great representation. And also the love interest is fat and a single dad, which are two things I hadn't really seen much of in romance, and it was really sweet. It was a really good romance. There's a little bit of spiciness if you're into that as well. But this one, yeah, I really liked it. I'll probably talk about more in another video, but it was great. 10 out of 10. There's a lot of books coming out this day. Another January 11th release is My Fine Fellow by Jennieke Cohen. So I read her other book, Dangerous Alliance, and I thought it was a really cool historical romance, very sweet young adult. And this is another young adult historical romance fiction that's kind of like a spin on My Fair Lady. So it follows these three different characters who are all interested in cooking in some way. And the basic plot is that two of them are going to take the third one, who is currently a like street vendor selling pastry, and turn him into like an accomplished like gentleman chef sort of thing. I don't really know a ton about it. I'm kind of leaving it that way because I really liked her other one, and I'm just ready to like just read it without knowing too much about it. So I think it should be another really sweet romance, really fun like historical Victorian romp through England somewhere probably. But yeah, I really liked Dangerous Alliance, and I'm excited for this one as well. As soon as I saw that she had another one coming out, I immediately put it on my TBR and I was like, yes, can't wait. The next book that I'm really excited for is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su-Lin Tan. I actually have a physical arc of this, which I have not read yet, but it comes out January 22nd. And like, just look at that cover. Isn't that beautiful? It's so vibrant, and I'm so excited. So this is an adult fantasy that is inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess, and it is a young woman who is going on a quest to free her mother and will end up challenging like the Celestial Emperor, who I'm pretty sure is like the, you know, top of the top immortals. And it just sounds really cool. It just sounds like a really interesting fantasy, some really cool like take on Chinese folklore, and it's supposed to have a like pretty good romance in it too, which I love in my fantasy books. I like a good thread of romance through there. So yeah, this one I've seen around a little, I've seen on social media a little bit, so I'm pretty pumped to be able to have an arc of it. All right, moving on down the line. So the next one I have is the first sequel that I'm super excited about. This one comes out January 25th, and it is Loveboat Reunion by Abigail Hing Wen. So this is the companion novel to Loveboat Taipei, which came out 2 years ago, I believe. This is a YA contemporary novel that follows Sophie and Xavier from the first book as they kind of reconnect and are dealing with their own issues, come back together at this reunion for the program, and, you know, start to feel the feels while she's, you know, working on school and he's trying to deal with his overbearing father. So I really liked Loveboat Taipei, and I'm really excited for this one as well. I will probably have to reread Loveboat Taipei because it's been a while since I've read it and I don't really remember who everyone is, but I'm definitely looking forward to picking it up. All right, moving on down the line. So the next book I have is You Truly Assumed by Laila Sabreen. This comes out February 8th. We're onto the second month now. And is another young adult contemporary novel that focuses on 3 Black Muslim girls who have created a blog online as a kind of like safe space for Muslim teens to talk about, you know, what it's like being Muslim after there's a terrorist attack and a whole bunch of like anti-Islamic sentiment is spreading amongst the population. Once this blog starts to get popular, they start getting like death threats and stuff, and so it's them trying to kind of like navigate all this while being like, you know, teenagers who are just trying to live life. Good. I think this one's going to tackle a lot of really important issues, especially with there's like so much Islamophobia currently in the world, in the Western world especially, and I'm just really interested to see this because I'm not sure that I've read books that feature specifically Black Muslim characters before. I'm really looking forward to a book with that kind of representation. So the next book that I'm excited about is The Chandler Legacies by Abdi Nazemian. So this is another YA contemporary novel. Can you see a theme? I really enjoy the YA contemporaries. So this follows 5 friends who are at a boarding school and who are kind of brought into this like coveted writing group where they are, you know, writing stuff where they have to reveal their vulnerabilities and secrets, and it just seems like not quite dark academia, maybe light academia, I don't know, but like it's got that academic setting. I love a boarding school novel. There's queer characters in here, so I'm really excited for that. I liked his other novel, Like a Love Story, a lot, so I'm really hoping I like this one as well. So the next book that I'm looking forward to in 2022 is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I actually got an advance copy of this too from NetGalley, and it's an adult sapphic romance, and it's also very sweet and lovely and a little bit steamy. But basically it follows Delilah Green, who is going to photograph her estranged stepsister's wedding, and she's going back to this hometown that she hates, and she's just like, you know what, I'll do my job, I need money, but I am just gonna make everyone as miserable as me while I'm there. And then she gets there and falls for one of her sister's like childhood best friends, who also is a single mom. This is a dual point of view story, so that was really interesting. I haven't read many romances that are dual point of view, but it was really neat to see them both fall for each other and see it like reciprocated. It was also interesting reading about a kind of like the villain in someone else's story, because, you know, she's a little bit of the evil stepsister. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really looking forward to the finished copy coming out in February. So the next book that I'm excited about, that I'm sure like 90% of BookTube is excited about, is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, which comes out March 1st. This is a fantasy novel where Olivia discovers her mother's journal that kind of suggests that maybe her mom went crazy and disappeared, and then she gets an invitation to come back to her home called Gallant, which she's like, hold up, what? Where? Who? She shows up at the house, and it turns out no one knows why she's there. No one had invited her, so she's trying to like discover why she got invited here. And there's like some spooky stuff going on, might be haunted, and then Olivia ends up slipping between the cracks of this world and like the shadow dimension, kind of. It looks really cool. It seems very like Halloween-y a little bit. Gives me kind of like Coraline vibes, maybe. But I'm excited to see where this goes. I have enjoyed the V.E. Schwab books that I've read before, so I'm hoping this one's good too. So next up, I have Jameela Green Ruins Everything by Zarqa Nawaz. This is actually by a Canadian author, which is very exciting. We love a Canadian author. And this follows Jameela Green, who wants to publish a memoir and have it hit New York Times bestseller list. And she goes to her mosque and she's like, what do I gotta do? Like, what kind of deal do we need to make here? I want a New York Times bestseller. And so her imam says that she has to perform a good deed. So she goes off on this quest to perform a good deed, and of course it all goes wrong. There's like a series of shenanigans. There's, you know, everything that she tries to do just like gets twisted, and you know, everything gets ruined, as the title would suggest. But it sounds really funny. The author is actually a Canadian film producer. She created Little Mosque on the Prairie, which is like a pretty popular series up in Canada, and it just seems really funny and like kind of tongue-in-cheek shenanigans. Yeah, I think the reason I had requested this arc was I saw it compared to My Sister's the Serial Killer, and I really like that one, so I'm hoping this one is also hilarious. I'm sorry if you can hear the neighbors. The like walls in our house are pretty thin, and they're all really noisy. Alright, so the next book on my list is Squire by Sarah Alfiji and Nadia Shammas. So this is actually a graphic novel, and I don't know a ton about it, other than it follows Asa, who wants to be a knight, which is like the top of the military in this fantasy world, and she like signs up and it's not what she expected. I actually found this graphic novel because I had seen Sarah Alfiji's art on Twitter or something, and I just fell in love with it, and then I saw that she was illustrating a graphic novel, and so it's been on my TBR since like last spring because I love her art so much. It's so gorgeous. You should go check it out. It's coming out March 8th. So the next book is called Blood to Poison, and it is by Mary Watson, and it comes out April 14th. So this is a young adult fantasy novel that takes place in Cape Town, South Africa, and it features a cursed family and a lot of female rage, which I have recently discovered I adore, because Iron Widow is like pure female rage, and I was like, oh yeah. That's the good stuff. So I am really excited about this one, and it looks like it's going to talk a lot about like historical and like generational rage and trauma and stuff, and it sounds really interesting, and I am excited to see where it leads, because it sounds almost like a modern folk tale. Alright, next up, coming out April 19th, is Sophie and the Bone Song by Adrienne Tooley. I managed to nab a physical arc of this as well. Thank you so much, Simon & Schuster. This is a young adult standalone fantasy that features queer characters, which is great. I think it's got a sapphic romance in it. We love a sapphic romance. So this follows Sophie, and she is a musician, and music in this world holds power and like magic. She is setting out to expose her kind of nemesis rival for using magic illegally. And then while she's doing this, you know, she starts to fall for a rival. There's an enemies to lovers romance, and it just sounds really interesting. And I really love this cover. It's so gorgeous. It's giving me kind of like Scandinavian vibes almost. And Adrienne Tooley was the one who wrote Sweet and Bitter Magic, and I did like that one a fair amount. So I'm hoping this one is even better, and I enjoy this one too. Alright, next we have some of my most anticipated books of 2022. So we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, who wrote Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, and I got an advanced copy of this one too on NetGalley, and I like lost my mind. I was like literally like jumping up and down in my seat in IKEA when I got the email, and I like zipped through it, and it was so good. But this is another adult romance, a little bit steamy again, and it follows Nora, who is a literary agent, and Charlie, who is kind of like grumpy book editor. And they end up in the same small town that was featured in one of Nora's clients' books that Charlie had turned down and didn't edit. And it ended up becoming like this huge success. And so they have like a little bit of bad blood between them, but they're both in this small town. Nora's sister is trying to get her to do all the like Hallmark small town things, you know, like save a local business and stuff. And her and Charlie start to, you know, meet up all the time, and they're always crossing paths because they're in this like tiny like 2-street town, and they start to fall for each other, of course. So it's got this kind of like rivals to lovers romance. There's a really lovely relationship between Nora and her sister Libby, and it's great. Emily Henry does it again. I'll buy everything that Emily Henry writes, honestly. She's great. Next up, also on May 3rd. Yes. So next up, also on May 3rd, is Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor by Shiran J. Zhao. Shiran is the author of Iron Widow, which I adored. If you don't know, then you obviously have not been on my channel very much, because I loved their book so much. It was so good. So they are like an automatic buy author for me now. But this is their second novel, and it is going to be a middle grade. It's going to be a middle grade. Oh my god! It's going to be a middle grade novel that they describe as like Percy Jackson meets Yu-Gi-Oh, which just sounds so interesting. And it also has a reimagining of the first emperor of China, so that seems really neat as well. I'll just, you know, whatever they write, I'll read it. They also have the Iron Widow sequel is supposed to be coming out in 2022 as well. There's not a date attached to it yet, but I'm also really looking forward to that. And as soon as that's available to order, I'm ordering it because I gotta know what happens. Shiran, oh my god, what have you done to me? And then May 3rd is just an excellent day for book releases, but the other book that I'm most excited for is I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, also coming out May 3rd. So this is Casey McQuiston's young adult debut, because all of their other novels have been adult romances, like new adult kind of, but definitely not like teen books. And this is, of course, another queer book because Casey McQuiston writes great queer romances. So basically, there's Shara Wheeler, who has kissed 3 different classmates and then like vanishes on prom night. And so the 3 classmates band together to try and like follow her. It's giving me kind of like Paper Towns vibes of like trying to like piece together the clues and figure out where she went. And, you know, they're all a little bit infatuated with her, obviously. So I'm really excited for this one too. Casey McQuiston has yet to do us wrong, so. All right, we're getting towards the end. I know this is a lot of books, but there's so many good books out there. So next up, we have Breathe and Count Back from 10 by Natalia Sylvester, and this comes out May 10th. So this is another young adult contemporary novel that has some disability rep for hip dysplasia, and it features a Peruvian character. So the author, I believe, also has the disability depicted in the book, so that's really exciting to see more disability rep in books, especially by disabled authors. And this follows Veronica, who has hip dysplasia, as I said, and she uses swimming kind of as rehab. And where she lives, they have like these mermaids, like not actual mermaids, but like people who like dress up as mermaids and like swim and, you know, perform. And so she wants to audition to be a mermaid, and so it's kind of her journey trying to do that when her parents like not into the idea. It just sounds really cool, and I'm trying to read more books with disability rep in them, so I think this one should be a good start. Next up, we have Just Your Local Bisexual Disaster by Andrea Mosqueda, which comes out May 24th. This is another young adult queer novel, and it follows Maggie, who is looking for a date to her little sister's quinceañera, and she has to choose between like 3 different people that she has feelings for. There's like a best friend, an ex, and like a new kid in town. So she's trying to figure out like her feelings, who does she ask, and I'm assuming just makes a mess of everything. But it seems really cute. The cover's cool. I love the title. It's so funny. The last book I have for this video, which is a sequel, is This Wicked Fate by Kaylin Barron. This comes out June 21st, and it's the sequel to This Poison Heart, which was really great. This is a young adult fantasy. It features some queer characters, and I won't really say too much about the sequel because it would give away stuff from the first one, but basically it follows a main character who has like botanical powers, and she's figuring out like the family history. There's like some curse and like legends going on that's brought her these powers, and her and her moms have ended up in this like family manor that's like a little haunted or something. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how that quest continues and I think ends. I think this is only a duology. But I'm really excited for this sequel because the last one left off on a cliffhanger and I was like, oh my god, what do you mean it ends there? So I'm really excited for that. But those are all of my most anticipated books for the first half, at least, of 2022. There's a lot of them. I have a lot of reading ahead of me, but that's okay, you know, that's preferable. Let me know if you've heard of any of these, if they're on your like most anticipated list, and what other books you might have that you're really looking forward to that I don't have on my list, because my TBR can always get bigger. I can always add more books in there. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Today I want to talk to you guys. Oh my god, what is this? What is this? Who knows? It's V.E. Schwab. Like, we'll just read it, right? I say shenanigans a lot. Words are terrible. The Iron Widow sequel. Ooh, sequel.